go. It's Friday night. Hi, everybody. How you doing? Happy Friday to all of you. Very excited. The torturous part of my week is kind of over. The good torture, the pleasant torture of doing the sexy liberal sketches. I had to turn them all in it's yesterday, so I technically did. No, technically it was today because it was 3 o'clock in the morning. But I still think I got my stuff in before John Fugel sang, so I feel good. I feel like each time he and I are like jockeying to get our sketches shot and edited, and I have so many unedited sketches that I shoot, and I'm doing them by myself, so I literally have no time to cut them, and it's just it's sad. It's sad. It's like my hard drive is like a slaughterhouse of sketch ideas. I feel bad, and so I've decided that going forward, I'm going to, some of these sketches I really, really like, and I just don't have time to do them right in the time allotted because of what's going on, because of usually the time of the news cycle, something that happens the week of, and I can't. So I'm going to go ahead and keep working on them and just post them for patrons and folks that subscribe to the channel. I think that works, right? Just have that as a thing, right? So anyways, it's been an exhausting couple of days, but I'm enjoying myself, and it's been really great. And it's always a good sign when you write a comedy song for something and you have it stuck in your head. So, always a pleasant sound. Now, there's so much to get to, and I feel like we owe it to Rudy Giuliani to do this laptop, what is effectively the last of the great tries. Go after him, Rudy. Miranda Devine's going to be there to help you. She's going to hold on. I have to move this over. It never pass up an opportunity to brutalize an addict who's coming clean about his life. Right, Rudy? That's right. Okay, so I haven't watched this one, and no one needs to, but we're going to, because here we go. Because I did all these episodes about it, and apparently we'll see if he feels vindicated on this one. Obviously, 8,000 views, 673 rumbles. He's not batting 1,000 on these videos. I mean, it is Rumble after all, but even then he was sitting. Earlier in this business, he was hitting, 10K, something like that. But yeah, glory hole. All right, so let's see. It's brutal. Let's see the brutal Biden crime family that is just they're the worst. They're the Gaudis of the Sopranos, of the Godfathers, of the triad of the Russian mob of all time. That lives in kind of upper middle class digs.
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm...
Why is this asshole always surprised by the title of his own goddamn show? What is happening? Why? Rudy, why are you surprised at your own show? Welcome to this is Rudy Giuliani, and this is what in the world?
Hello, this is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back with you with Rudy's Common Sense. This episode, we're going to deal with if they're new, revelations by Hunter Biden that emerged from his book and his interview. And we're going to talk to someone who's become quite an expert on it. And like so many other subjects, she has written very authoritatively, very in-depth about this. So,
yeah, she's an authority on reading a book that's been written about things.
It's a real honor to talk to her and interview.
Get on with it!
Miranda Devine, who is a columnist,
dear Lord,
for the New York Post. And are you a contributor on Fox? You're on there so often. It seems like you should have your own show.
Yeah, I'm a contributor there.
So
yeah, I'm a contributor there.
Miranda, let's have.
Wait a minute. Did I detect an Australian accent?
Have you had a chance to read the book? Have you, or just excerpts of it?
Yeah, good morning there. Yes, I've read the whole book. I got it a couple of days early, and it's not very hard to get through because there's really not a lot there. He I mean, you know that because
I know.
you were the one who tipped me off to the laptop last year, that I've been right through the laptop. And when you compare the reality of his life through that period to the sort of self.
When you look at an addict's life from a judgmental point of view, from the outside, it's very different from the way they look at it as they try to move from addiction to healing to getting their life back together. Because they're a lot more charitable than you're apt to be, considering that it's your business to shit on his whole family.
Self-hagiography that he's written in his memoir, Beautiful Things, they're chalk and cheese. The only thing he's
chalk and cheese. Rudy doesn't know what you're talking about.
Open about to any extent is his crack addiction. And, you know, that's problematic in itself.
What, being open about it? Yeah, it's when addicts are truthful about their addictions, I mean, that's really the first red flag.
Well, how far back does he say he became an addict? Does it go back to his childhood or his time in the military? When does he actually...
When does he cop to the fact that he was on drugs?
Does he locate a time when he started?
Yeah, he says that when he was 8 years old, he was in Delaware. His father had just won re-election to the Senate, and he sneaked a glass of champagne under a table and drank the whole thing during a sort of a post-election party that his parents were having.
Not champagne.
At the local school. So, and then he said...
I mean, that's really, many of us know that champagne is a gateway drug to crack whores.
Is that a few years later, he went and had a sleepover at a friend's place and they got drunk. And then he sort
of... A few years later, like when he's 15 or when he's 10.
Sort of doesn't mention much else about his teenage years other than sort of casually mentioning that at the...
Yeah, they don't, Rudy, they don't talk about his teenage years much, so put your pants back on.
Age of 18, he was picked up by the police for snorting cocaine with a couple of friends in a parked car outside a party. So he was well into the hard stuff by, his teenage years.
I assume he never got arrested for that.
The police actually came and knocked on the door. I think he said they cuffed him, but no, he had some sort of a...
Excuse me, can you step out? Does that smell like cocaine to you, Bob?
A legal issue, but it was expunged from his record, I presume, because he was so young. I'm not sure we can read anything untoward in that, but we do know that in Delaware,
Try.
Joe
Why
Biden...
pass it up? Honestly, why pass it up?
Has a lot of pull with law enforcement and everybody else. The Bidens run Delaware.
So
it is. It is the Biden state.
So the reason I ask is I don't want to delve into his weaknesses or...
Yes, you do. You just did.
Frailties. Everyone has problems and issues, and drug addiction is a major problem.
Mm-hmm.
The difference here is we have drug addiction involving a man who earned millions and millions of dollars.
That's never happened before. No one who's ever made millions of dollars has done drugs. There are no billionaires that are currently on drugs like cocaine. This asshole was the mayor of New York. Have you ever been to Wall Street? Made millions and cocaine? When did that shit start? It's like the Reese's Cups of economics.
It would be yet another reason why they wouldn't be paying him, they'd be paying somebody else.
Why? You don't think businessmen coked up do deals together? Are you out of your mind? Seriously. This isn't this literally, like, hey man, I noticed you're doing blow or whatever. I don't really trust you, but here's a bunch of money because your dad's sweet.
When you look at his history of drug addiction from the hard drive and the other investigating I've done is beyond the norm. I don't know if there's normal drug addiction.
Yeah, there's run-of-the-mill drug addiction, like low rent.
But he's a high-level drug user, let's put it that way. I mean, he uses drugs, it seems.
Did.
Almost every year that I investigated him, and going in and out of rehabilitation. So it puts another issue there about why would somebody pay him $3 million?
Yeah, I know. I don't know if you guys know this, but Robert Downey Jr., his dad, Robert Downey, was actually paid for all the Avengers movies. Because Robert Downey Jr. obviously used a lot of drugs during a period of time. And so instead of, paying him for the work, they were like, we'll put him in the movie. But it's really just a way of getting money to Robert Downey. Okay. I don't even know why this needs to be an aside. Hold on. Do we just do, how about that? This kind of, here's a good one. Why bankers and cocaine are the best of friends. How cocaine crushed my trading skills. 12 drugs you're likely to find in a trader's desk. Why do some Wall Street bankers use cocaine? Cocaine in finance? Is cocaine still popular on Wall Street? What an article. Seriously. Rudy, the fuck are you talking about, man? Oh, these are wrong people, sorry. Yeah.
Or someone pay him $8 million or someone pay him anything.
Yeah, why would they pay him $2, much less $5? How much is crack these days?
So it's pretty clearly established that he's addicted to drugs.
He's an addict. He's an admitted addict. Unlike your buddy Trump and his kids, who clearly do benzos and meth and coke and Adderall and crush Sudafed and snort that because it's a cheapo meth.
Well, look, the whole memoir is about his drug journey.
It's like a big admission of something. I don't know why you don't just march him into the fucking bobbies and say, like, exhibit fucking A. Arrest this guy. Read his book. He's admitted to cocaine.
And what's beautiful about
it? Well, I think the beautiful thing about it from his point of view is, A, he got $2 million reportedly in an advance, and B, he thinks that this is a way of inoculating himself and his family from the very damaging contents of the laptop.
No, I think the beautiful things he's talking about is like healing and stuff. You wouldn't know shit about that.
As much as says that. He boasted yesterday in a CBS interview, one of many that he's doing in promoting
to promote the book.
Promoting the book is.
Oh yeah, that's that people do that.
That when he, back in 2019, I don't know if you remember, but he gave a very candid interview to The New Yorker.
It's just gross how candid he is.
He says in the book that he would lie in bed in his motel room talking to the author of that article while smoking crack. And when it came out, there was a real shock, and people said, well, why would he do that to his father, who's only just launched his presidential bid for 2020? And this was only, the New Yorker article was only a few months after he'd abandoned his laptop at the MacBook repair shop in Delaware, which in itself was only 8 days after Joe Biden actually formally announced he was running for president. So the New Yorker article looked like...
It's weird that he's like being all open.
A real slap in the face to his father, very damaging.
Apparently not. His dad is president.
In fact, according to Hunter yesterday on the CBS interview, he was congratulating himself. He said that he was basically smarter than any of Joe Biden's professional media advisors, because he knew that by giving that interview and being candid about his drug use, that he was going to inoculate his father and the campaign from any sort of dirt that might be brought up about his crack addiction.
Yeah, nobody jumps the lie and tells the truth. Nobody does that. Honestly, their biggest argument right now is that he's being honest. That seems to be...
So in other words, if he could establish he's a crack addict, which he is, the sympathy from the left would be so great that he could.
Yeah, because there's no sympathy for addicts on the right. Is that what you're saying, Rudy? So fuck addicts. I mean, honestly, from Rudy Giuliani's point of view, at this point, should we just move past the fact that all the people who've died of opioid overdoses and opiate overdoses in the last 6 years had it coming, right, Rudy? I mean, obviously us bleeding heart liberals feel bad for them, but every time an opioid addict dies, a Giuliani gets his wings.
He could pay bribes, take bribes, illegally possess weapons, make false statements on federal forms. He could basically do all these things that the hard drive demonstrates that he did, beyond any doubt. And the liberal left would just swoon and say, "Poor Hunter, he's just a poor little thing."
Yeah, it's weird that your buddies do all that, but they weren't addicted at the time. They just did it because they thought they could get away with it.
Now, does anyone ever ask Joe the question? Isn't it a fact that Hunter used a lot more drugs than thousands of people that went to jail as a result of his 1994 crime bill, and most of them African American?
Isn't it? I guess the same question would apply to Trump's legal issues. I mean, obviously, people who've ripped off a corner store are in jail for 10, 20, 30 years, and Trump does the same thing to a cancer charity, for hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he gets to, pretend he added a wing to a hospital?
Well, yeah, exactly. But
yeah, totally.
Joe Biden has a very pat, and actually it's been very successful response. He gets rave reviews from the establishment media every time he uses it. He used it to great effect in that debate against Donald Trump when he said...
But in all fairness, that could be true of every sentence Biden said during the debate.
He looked down the barrel of the camera and he said, like a lot of you out there, you Americans, my son has an addiction problem, and I'm so proud of him because he's beaten it. And, it is true. A lot of people do have addiction problems.
Yeah, but how dare he, right? How dare he address that Americans have addiction problems, recognize that his son has one, love his son after this. I mean, why don't you just shoot your kid?
And everyone has sympathy for them, but...
Rightly so.
This is not a story simply about addiction. This is the story of the son of the president, the son of the former vice president, who was monetizing his father's name, who had an influence peddling business that was, rampant throughout the world, that Joe Biden himself, as we see from the material on the laptop, was involved in. He was aware of it, and he was...
No, he wasn't.
Actively involved. And it also involved...
Yeah, no, Rudy says he gets 50% of the take of what, $1.2 billion. I guess that's what he bought Delaware with. I mean, you can't own all of Delaware for... it can't be cheap. Is he making payments?
The members of the family, particularly Uncle Jim, Joe Biden's younger brother, who is sort of a mentor of Hunter.
We've all heard... This is basically Rudy's show with an Australian accent. We've all heard this shit before.
In this family influence peddling business. And
influence peddling business. I'm not, honest to God, I have to be honest. From her, the way she's talking, I can't tell whether she's alleging that Biden is using Hunter to influence the people that he's in business with, or if people are buying into Biden, which is Rudy's assessment, into Hunter to get Joe to do certain things. The problem they always have is there's no sign that they ever got anything, that there was a quo for the quid.
And, it's not just that they're raking in lots of money in this very untoward way. It's also the fact who they're getting it from.
Yeah, who are they getting
Chiefly from? China, which means that,
not chiefly China. I thought the problem was Ukraine.
You can only assume that Joe Biden as president is compromised, that the Chinese...
Yeah, they've got him. I mean, he's probably got a secret bank account with like $17 million. Well, not 17, obviously. Trump withdrew 15 million from that account. I mean, wait, what?
Have something on them because they have paid them so much money and they didn't do that for free. And it's the same with Ukraine.
They invested it. China made money on the deal. Look, this is I don't doubt that like bribes occur in politics and that kind of stuff, but the bribe is usually the thing into itself. That I'll give you this money like Trump's loans, like selling a property for $90 million you bought for 12 that isn't worth it and that kind of stuff, or getting a loan you never have to pay back. And there's nothing came in return because you did some behavior that they effectively paid for. But the investment into Rosemont Seneca by the Chinese bank that was 4 years before Hunter joined it made money. They made money. There was no extra to it. It was an investment scheme.
Ukraine, as you know,
Burisma is a solid company now. It's weird. Before they have a crack addict on their board, they're shitting money and they're going down the tubes, and they're one of the most corrupt energy companies in Europe. And now they're a functioning company.
Burisma, which was paying Hunter Biden $83,000 a month from early 2014, April 2014, until just after his father left office as vice president, and then they cut his pay in half because he was no longer as useful to them, which was pretty obvious why they had hired him. But Burisma...
But he become more useful to the Moscow mayor's wife after that, because that happened after.
Got their money's worth because Joe Biden went in to Ukraine, threw his weight around, he's boasted about it, and demanded that if they were going to get US aid, that they had to sack the very prosecutor who was...
There was no investigation. We've already been through this shit before. And the guy they sacked was a Russian sock puppet. He's now under the protection of Vladimir Putin. The EU, the World Trade Organization, and the entirety of the Obama administration and all of Congress wanted that guy out. He bragged because of his effectiveness at talking this guy into it, not because it was his idea.
Who was investigating Burisma, which was a corrupt energy company in Ukraine. And that...
When was that? When was that? Was it before 2014? That's weird.
Prosecutor was...
But if Hunter didn't join until 2014, and the company didn't start cleaning up its act until 2014, then how does it
fired? And so it was mission accomplished. It was great money well spent by Burisma.
Mykola Zlochevsky, who ran Burisma and is a major figure in Ukraine organized crime, a Ukraine oligarch, a man who stole $5 billion and made his money by being
who left the country right after Hunter Biden joined the board and didn't return until after he left.
Government minister, giving himself the best leases for 5 years. I mean, he could be, it's hard to say the crookedest man in Ukraine. You have about 20 people that would vie for that title. But he's right up there.
Well, yeah, you're not currently there.
Doesn't it occur to you, Miranda, that all this sympathy for Hunter, maybe that's appropriate, but what?
Maybe?
What's a father doing involving a son who has this terrible affliction from the time he's 8 years old?
This terrible affliction from the time he's 8 years old. Hunter Biden, champagne addict.
With some of the crookedest people in the world. Zlochevsky, the wife of the mayor of Moscow.
Who's not in Ukraine.
She's quite a character.
Is she?
She might have been involved in deposing her own husband.
Might have? As the most corrupt man in Moscow?
As mayor, and became very close to Putin.
You were for the removal of that mayor.
So this is really one of the nicer people to introduce a weak drug addict to. Then in...
Wait a minute. Don Jr. met him?
In China, just 2 years ago, they went into business with 3 Chinese spies, members of the Chinese Communist Party. That's the deal where they were going to get $10 million a year, and there's the 10% for the big guy. So let's get to the...
They were going to get $10 million from these guys to invest. Not 10 million bucks. 10 million to invest. They expected it back.
Let's get to the laptop. He sort of admits it's his laptop, but he doesn't. He said it could be, absolutely could
have been stolen.
be, but he doesn't remember missing it. Now, how is that possible since he was missing another one too?
Has anybody got a new laptop? You've gotten 3 laptops in the last 15 years? Is one of them in the garage? Would you know if it went missing? Did you throw it out? Is it still around? Seriously.
You know, the other one was seized by the FBI in Boston from Dr. Abelow. And
oh, yeah. Let's go back to that story. It was seized by the FBI from Dr. Abelow. Who's Dr. Abelow?
the FBI gave it back to them.
Oh, yeah? So, why did Dr. Abelow, who the heck is Dr. Abelow? That name sounds familiar. Let's see, Fox News, Abelow. There's a guy, he's friends with Rudy. I know Rudy's close friends with, who's the guy? Oh, yeah. What it took for a Fox News psychiatrist to finally lose his license. Keith Abelow was a popular fixture on the cable channel until 2017 and a high-profile therapist. He left a trail of vulnerable female patients who claim he abused them. Late in 2009, a 20-year-old woman not long out of graduate school found herself in a stressful job at a Bronx hospital and decided it would be useful to talk to someone. Searching online, she came across the name of a psychiatrist, Keith Abelow. Dr. Abelow was familiar to her from his writing, both his journalism and best-selling thrillers. He turned out Denial, Projection, Compulsion, Murder, Suicide. She had read all of those, as well as Psychopath, a book about a psychiatrist who prods the interior lives of strangers only to kill them. Because that's the shrink you want to go see. What? Baroquely obscuring the distinction between patient and victim. The woman, who was asked not to be identified only by her confirmation name Monique, found Dr. Abelow just as his media star was rising. That year, Roger Ailes hired him as a regular contributor to Fox News. Why would he do that? Why would you hire a psychiatrist to go on the air who wrote books about a shrink who wrote a book about murdering his patients? Why that guy? I'm sorry, are there shrinks in New York that aren't telegenic or something? Presiding over viewer segments like Normal or Nuts. Abelow offered counseling in the conventional sense. He also conducted life coaching via email. Good times. Over the next year and a half, he was impressed to her, and so he made a fire trip for her first visit. Over the next year and a half, Monique saw Dr. Abelow 2 or 3 times a week at the reduced rate of $350 an hour. During this time, she found herself coming unwound. Her anxiety about work did not recede. On the contrary, she felt addled and scared. Not only failed to help her, he left her more damaged than she already was. Frequent texts and emails, intimate revelations about his own life were in the service of her treatment, well within the standard psychiatric discovered. Take years. Other patients came forward. The case represents a core challenge in psychological treatment. By the time Monique left to care, her new marriage had fallen apart, and she developed a dependency on Valium, Xanax, and Adderall. Why would Abelow be doling out Adderall, right? And then magically end up on Fox, the pro-Trump network? What is that all about? Let's see. As we spoke to, Monique's caution gave way to fluid emotional narrative. It's easy to imagine her on the side of conversations that played hundreds of times. She was, in fact, a therapist herself. Abelow's license was suspended in Massachusetts after an investigation determined that his continued practice was a threat to health, safety, and welfare of the public. This is Rudy's character witness in this circumstance, Dr. Abelow. Abelow. Rudy, why are you mispronouncing this guy's name on purpose so that people will type in Dr. Abelow and never find it?
At the request of Hunter's lawyer, because it sounds like the FBI is working for them.
Yeah, the FBI is working for them. Yeah, because the FBI would never, when they find a shrink in possession of the private materials of his patients who've been busted for sexually harassing, assaulting, and drugging them, why would they return personal items to the victims? That's weird.
In this particular case, the merchant kept the laptop. But
Oh, okay, so he's a thief.
this isn't the only laptop that was missing.
So basically a couple of them were stolen, is what you're saying.
So how could he not realize when he got sober and he had to use his laptop again, it wasn't there?
Where's your old iPad, Rudy? Sometimes you have two. Occasionally you have one. Where's the other one? Where is it? Where's your honest to God? Where's Rudy's? That's got to be his third iPad at least. Where's the other one? Did you give it to somebody as a gift? Where is it, Rudy? What's still on it? Is it still hooked up to the cloud? If somebody, because it's now they use facial recognition or you use the thumbprint, but the early one, your first iPad, Rudy, probably still hooked up to your iCloud accounts, probably updating if it's hooked up to power anywhere, or would in a couple seconds. And if they've worked out what your password is, they'd have access to all the stuff you have now, Rudy. Where is it?
It makes no sense. He has to be lying about that.
Why does he have to be lying about that? I mean, obviously, Ablo's a thief. You know Ablo. He worked at Fox. You guys coordinated to steal his old laptop. So what'd he do? Bring Hunter over, give him a Xanax to have him calm down, and he fell asleep on the chair, and you just kind of, did I bring a laptop with me? No. You just had your jacket. Here you go. Bye.
Yes, and it's pretty obvious.
Well, yeah, sure.
When you look at him that he's lying.
Why? Why? I mean, I know you want him to be lying. I know you need him to be lying.
But he
But you believe Dr. Ablo. That's my problem.
As an addict, I guess, you know from the laptop how many lies he tells to his family. It's just second nature to him.
Yeah, addicts. Basically, lying is the gateway drug. Thank you, Gina.
And
Benny Loco does indeed rock.
As you know better than anybody, Rudy, the laptop, there is so many receipts to demonstrate that the laptop belongs to him. And one of those things is something you pointed out yesterday, which is that Hunter's lawyer, George Messiers, actually phoned the Mac repair shop, John Paul Mac Isaac, who's the owner of that, on the evening that before the New York Post, we were running our first story, and asked for the laptop back. And he did that because we at the Post had reached out to George Messier and told him that we had the laptop. So that was the first that they realized.
Okay.
That it was going to be a problem for them.
Oh, yeah? So you've got the laptop. Rudy's got the laptop. And you haven't presented it. Why isn't it?
And I guess they panicked and phoned the Mac repair shop, give us back the laptop. And
how dare they?
John Paul.
And he said, no, I sold it.
Mac Isaac was wise enough not to fall for that. But
to fall for it? What do you mean fall for it?
We should actually point out what a hero he is. Sorry, yes.
Just to show people, this is one of about 8, including ones with his signature that have been matched. The reality is, from the very beginning, it was his, but I was accused of, and you were accused of, using material.
Of getting a hold of an actual laptop, going to Ukraine, coming back with data, putting it on the laptop, and using that after the whole stealing it from Ablo didn't work.
Material we got from the Russians, using material that was hacked.
Yeah, all still true.
Using stolen material. And
all still true.
All of that was just a complete lie.
No, it isn't. Rudy, Booby, leave me your computer for 2 weeks, and I swear to God, when you get it back, there will be no added files.
To cover up this information.
And unlike you, I actually know how to cover up the metadata.
So that the American people wouldn't hear about this before they voted.
Why would that affect their vote? Why? What about this? Seriously. And by the way, this is the guy who defended Trump not showing his taxes.
It's about as cynical a conspiracy as you can get.
As cynical a conspiracy as you can get. Is it really?
This is a good time to take a short break.
Yeah, it's a good time to sell something.
I accomplished a lot.
No, you didn't. Hold on. Where is he? Let's go past this. Free gold and that kind of stuff. Okay, we're back.
With Miranda Devine. But let's get to
Did you do that pickup later? Where'd the folder over here go? Why did a folder worth of information disappear during the show, Rudy?
the laptop. What?
What?
Tell us in
You know, remember, Biden has dementia.
the material that's there. Isn't there a pretty clear admission that Joe Biden was sharing in all of this? I mean, particularly the document
Really, the same fucking... We're going to talk about the same 6 pages?
regarding the conspiracy or the business with the Chinese Communist Party members, where at the very bottom of the memo, which I think I see in front of me, it says 10% for the big guy.
Yes, we know. This is the same shit you've gone to every single time. And by no means can anyone who's had possession of a laptop for over a year and the password to get into it, which clearly the shop owner did, who somehow knew your lawyer, no one could ever get in there and type at the bottom of any email an extra sentence.
And now
10% to the big guy. That'll do it.
we're talking about a lot of money. This is like $1 million up front, $10 million a year for 3 years in order to make introductions. I imagine that's very well paid work. I didn't realize he got $10 million from making. I am now going to go into the making introductions business.
What do you mean now go into?
But isn't that about as clear as you can get that Joe was involved in it?
Yes, and look, the big guy we know from Tony Bobolinsky, who was Hunter's business partner. He came
Yeah, the guy on the outs that got fired from Rosemont Senator.
out last year, handed over the contents of 3 of his phones with a lot of very, very damning material. A lot of it matched up with what's on the laptop.
A lot of it didn't, but we ignore that part.
He gave that.
Actually, a whole lot of it didn't. It was weird. The same emails on his phone, and you look at the emails on the laptop, and they don't match. So obviously, Hunter's has found some way to sneak into Dr. Ablow's office, get the keys to the laptop repair shop, sneak in there after dark, and change the emails in his laptop, and then pretend it isn't his.
That to the
It's all part of a big conspiracy.
FBI, and he confirmed that the big guy is Joe Biden, and that's further confirmed by many other documents on the laptop, emails, text messages, which refer explicitly to Joe Biden as the big guy. That seemed to be a just common way of talking about Joe Biden in communication with Hunter, the big guy. At one stage, one of the Burisma people, a foreigner, Vadim, described, I think it was someone else, a guy
Somebody else. It doesn't matter, really.
called Vuk, described him as the big man. So big guy,
Yeah, it's the same thing. I mean, it's a nickname, but it changes all the
big
time.
man, it's Joe Biden. And then there's another email or a text message that Hunter sends to one of his daughters at one point, and he's quite peeved.
This is the same shit we've heard before. You have access to the whole fucking hard drive, and you're talking about the same 6 pages these assholes have printed out. Seriously, the whole hard drive. Think about this. Think about how much criminality they're alleging is on this hard drive. And so far, we're fucking a year and a half into this horse shit, and he brings on someone new to talk over this story with him, and she's bringing up the same 6 printed pieces of paper. What the fuck are you talking about? If you don't have any, like, how do you have an email, like an entire hard drive full of someone's life? Do you know how many unanswered emails I have? Something like 45,000. Like, there's a ridiculous amount of information on my life in my emails. None of it's incriminating, unfortunately. I need a scandal someday. But you could figure out a shit ton of stuff. You'd get more than, if you were trying to, like, attack me on something, you could print out more than just this, I would imagine, from myriads of text messages with people over the years that's just stacked up in there. And at the end of this, you have a dude who's an admitted crack addict And you keep going back to the same 6 printed pieces of paper that Rudy's held up?
About the demands for money from his kids, I guess. And he says, well, at least you're lucky. You don't have.
That's the same shit. Yeah, he's giving his money. His parents held onto it. They created a bank account for him so he wouldn't snort all of his money. They didn't keep it.
To give half your salary to Pop. And Pop is the name that Joe Biden's
Yeah, Big Pop, Big Man, Man Pop, Popsicle. There's like 1,000 names, but they're all the same guy.
Children used to call him. So Pop was getting 50% of Hunter's salary,
Holding on to it.
according to Hunter. And Hunter
And giving it back to him.
had been, according to Hunter, supporting the entire family for 30 years.
Why would you have to support the entire family if you're just the fucking bag man? Again, this goes against Rudy's entire narrative. Do you understand how stupid that sentence is? If you're the bag man, you don't view giving half your salary to the family. You don't. The bag man does not gripe about what the mafia boss does, right? If the mafia boss is the reason the bag man is carrying the cash in the first place, he just shuts the hell up and goes, I get to keep half of this for doing fuck all. But if there's no mafia boss, and you're just, because you're rich, paying for relatives to go to school because they don't make the kind of money, your dad's vice president, and he doesn't have the kind of money it would take to send people to prep school, and your cousins and your everybody's coming out of the woodwork because Hunter's rich and asking you to pay for shit, you gripe about it. Yeah, that's right, Mary Green. Drug addict supports whole family for 30 years.
So he is just explaining that he is the bag man for the Biden family.
Bag men don't own the money. Bag men don't bitch about giving up half the money.
Family. He's the front man. He goes out. He monetizes the family name.
And what? Lives off a 50% commission?
Doesn't do much. Just waves the flag, sits on a board, is there. And we also know from the laptop how involved he was with his father. I mean, he would, people would come to him as if he were the sort of courtier in the court, and they would, there's a judge on there who goes to Hunter and says, look, would you mind putting my name forward, basically to your father, because I'd like to be elevated to the district court, and here's my CV. People were always
Yeah, but he didn't return. He didn't become one. Fucking hell. Your dad's vice president and you're responsible for people asking you for favors? It's only a crime if you start the favor part, or they come to you, I guess, and ask you for a favor, and you go and you create a quid pro quo. Seriously, we're gonna go with every time somebody asks you a favor, it's a crime. Wait 1 second. Hold on. So, what are we doing here? What are you doing here, Rudy? So you broom the Italian mob out of New York so the Russians and the Chinese can move in. And then your campaign gets a lift. Project much?
He's coming to Hunter and asking him to do favors for him, or get his father to do favors for him, basically.
And are they getting them?
Sometimes I think that got quite wearing for him. I mean, he often didn't answer his emails. He didn't answer his text messages. He'd just go AWOL, presumably on a drug bender.
So the corruption here is a judge asks for him to ask his dad for a favor to get a promotion, essentially, to get put on a circuit court, and Hunter never answers the email and goes and smokes crack. And that's a sign that Joe Biden is corrupt. What?
And it was interesting with Burisma. I mean, he had very few duties, judging from the laptop. He talks in the book about how arduous these duties were, and that the $83,000 a month really wasn't out of kilter with normal Fortune 500
It isn't.
payments to.
And do you think $83,000 a month investment banker guys do cocaine? Do you think that Hunter Biden is unique in this world?
Board members. In fact, it's 12 times the amount that board members in the US in a comparable size company would make. I mean, they make about
What do you mean a comparable size company? You get a percentage of the money that you are shepherding.
$83,000 a year, not per month. And
No. A 3-person company that has some staff that shepherds $1 billion of investment into Ukrainian oil and gas and has to watch it to make sure it gets spent right isn't going to make $83,000 a year. Do you want them bought off? Is that the goal? Do you want them to make so little money that anybody rolls through and go, you make $83,000 a year, I can give you $20,000 a month if you just make this go away?
And
that's about $1 million. That's about $1 million a year.
Weird. And how much money were they in charge of? How much money did they bring in to Burisma and had to babysit it to make sure it got spent? And each of the guys on the board made $1 million a year. Anybody want to guess? Somewhere in the order of $500 to $800 million in invested capital. So whoever's investing this is paying effectively $4 million a year to make sure that their $800 million doesn't vanish.
And also, Miranda, his partner.
Oh my God, Joyce, thank you so much. Yeah, thanks, Can't Stop Lying. Thank you. Happy Sexy Liberal 10th anniversary. Oh, that's very sweet. I'm very excited about you guys seeing the sketches this weekend, and I have lots more.
For a period of time until he got arrested and convicted, Devin Archer also was getting the same amount of money, and it was coming into the same firm. So if you want to look at it as the firm's income, they're making more like $170,000, $180,000 a month.
Right. Yeah. Everybody who works in the firm is doing the same job. They're all shepherding the same money. It's a commission.
And that gets closer to $2 million now.
No, it isn't. He doesn't get $2 million because the guys he works with get the other half of it. It's $3 million. You said he gets $1 million a year. He's on equal footing financially with the other people. Like how basic is this fucking math?
For the Biden business.
No. Hunter is if there's any Biden business in this, it's only Hunter. The other guys don't give money to Joe Biden for the chance to work at Burisma. What are you talking about? Where's those emails? You have that other guy's phone. Where's the emails from his phones that he gave up that he has to give 50% or 10% of what he makes to Joe Biden? Are you out of your fucking mind?
Yeah. Well, and later on, Hunter actually got the money siphoned not into the business account, but into his own account. So,
and there's also, and I've used this in podcasts in the past. There's also
nothing's original.
A transaction in February of 2016 where they get an additional $3 million laundered to them.
Laundered to them. Laundered. It's laundered. Is it laundered, Rudy?
And if you match up those records with the records of Devin Archer's trial, you see the $3 million coming into the firm. But it doesn't come directly in. It goes from Ukraine to Latvia to Cyprus, and then Cyprus. And it's all, this one transaction lays it all out. So
well, then create a chart and show us, asshole. You can't just bring that shit up and go, yeah, just trust me. The money bounced all over the fucking place. $3 million was spent here. $3 million. What about the $900 that Matt Getz sent to Joel Greenberg, and then Joel Greenberg paid 3 teenage girls $300 a piece the next morning, and Matt Getz names one of the girls in his Venmo.
The question I have for you
Is why edit that?
if this is kind of a silly question, but it leads
I have no doubt.
to something. If you were an FBI agent, wouldn't you jump out of your seat when you saw that and say, oh, well, we've got a subpoena. We got a subpoena now, his records, both records. Joe has 5 houses, I think. He has 5 homes. That's a lot of homes for a senator. And
He's not a senator. He's a vice president, and he and his wife are millionaires because he wrote a book. And
school teacher. According to him, very likely he paid for some of those.
well, then they're his houses. So Joe doesn't have 5 houses.
I have seen records that he paid for the tuition of one of the daughter.
Yes, we've seen that shit too. So let me guess: $1 billion in Chinese funds, the huge Biden crime family, and your gotcha is that Hunter Biden paid school tuition for one of the relatives.
Daughter, Joe and Jill's daughter. So records would tell you how much
that, Kevin,
he paid for. Yet the FBI not only never investigated, they never even took a step to look at this.
Why would they look at someone paying if they're obviously a millionaire and they pay? How much was the tuition? 40 grand?
What's wrong? What? These are obvious either crimes or highly incriminating facts.
Yeah, I know. And I don't know why people don't look into obvious crimes and highly incriminating facts more often. I don't know why. Let's see. I did a lot of fundraising for Giuliani. Other campaign beneficiaries. I mean, there's a lot elaborate scam. That's all of a sudden there's Russian money flying into New York because Rudy Giuliani broomed out the Italian mob. Weird.
I did this work for 18 years.
Well, you did the work of the Russian mob for 18 years.
I couldn't possibly have passed this up. It would have been a dereliction of duty.
To your Russian handlers?
What's going on?
Well, it's extraordinary. And, in our discussions previously, you've pointed out just...
Yeah, it does bring up something else, though. Let's say, let's go to a time when Rudy was mayor, or was a prosecutor. And let's see, you'd have to look into this stuff. Let's see. You would have to look into financial transactions that are incredibly sketchy, obviously. That in terms of during the period where Rudy Giuliani was in charge of, was the DA and was looking into the mob and all this kind of stuff, and then became mayor. And it's just weird that, all these guys are rolling money all around, and then all of a sudden, I don't know why, paid the largest fine ever levied against the casino for having willfully violated anti-money laundering rules. And that wouldn't be a red flag to you, Rudy, during that time when you were actually, not now, you're obviously, semi-retired, wart on Trump's ass. But during that time, you could have done something about it, in theory.
Just as extraordinarily, when Devon Archer, Hunter's business partner, was arrested and then convicted over this fraud to do with ripping off Indian pension funds from Indian reservations, Native American tribes. You would think that
you would think that if they had anything on Hunter Biden, he would have used some of that to soften his conviction, and yet he never did. That's weird.
Prosecutors would try and milk him, try and come to some sort of an accommodation with him, get information with him about Hunter. Somehow Hunter, who was involved in that business, that Burnham business, and actually received around $500,000 from it, at least, that we can find.
Well, at least.
on the laptop.
It's on the laptop. I see. It's not in financial records that you can get from the case from the laptop. That's weird. So we'll just trust that it's on the laptop, but not anywhere else.
And was an executive director of it, intimately involved in meetings and planning for it.
Well, when he wasn't high on crack, obviously,
Escaped
and not answering emails.
scot-free. There was nothing at all that was pinned on
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, Paul.
him. He was not regarded as being part of this business. And 3 of his partners ended up getting convicted. 2 are in jail. And Devon Archer is awaiting sentencing. He managed somehow, even though his case didn't look any different from the other 2, he somehow managed to get a judge to order a retrial. So he seems to be skating along, getting the kid glove treatment. Not quite as kid glove as Hunter Biden, but still pretty good. And as you have asked,
again, we're still going on same 6 fucking pages.
why was he not leaned on to provide information about Hunter?
Well, maybe he was and he had none.
Yeah, I mean, there are 1,000 questions.
Like Hunter, what are you talking about? Hunter's a crack addict. He's not in charge of anything. I ran the whole thing. Like, how do you think that question gets answered?
That emerged from this hard drive. And some...
Yeah, the criminal genius crackhead who pays for houses his dad's own, but he still manages to own them, who is the bag man for the family, but complains about paying for everything.
pretty clear, straight out crimes. The one that's hardly the most serious, but one that is so easy for people to understand is the situation with the .38 revolver. I mean,
really, that story again? The one is while he was addicted, his sister-in-law throws out because she's worried he's going to do himself in.
Hunter buys himself a handgun, and he puts down on the form. The form is a federal form. Everyone has to fill it out. The left wing makes, this is currently their biggest issue. Gun control and guns not being in the hands of people who are mentally disturbed, criminals or addicts.
No. Obviously mentally disturbed. If someone's an addict or a former addict, that's a different thing altogether.
Well, you got one. You got one to prosecute. Joe, son, goes in and fills out that he's not involved with drugs. No. And isn't there a picture of him?
He's not involved with drugs? Is there a question on there? Like, how close are we talking? Do you like drugs? Yes. Yes, but do you like drugs?
A few days earlier with that crack pipe?
Yes, 8 days before he signed that firearms registration form, swearing that he was not an addict and that he had never taken illicit drugs.
By the way, every gun owner who smoked pot, after you.
He was photographed asleep with a meth pipe, a crack pipe in his
I mean, what's the difference really? A meth pipe, a crack pipe, it's all the same.
mouth. He was fresh off. That was the middle of a bender. That was the year he even admits in his book, and we know on
Wait, he admits in the book?
his laptop, he was completely out of control.
If he was completely out of control, how was he in charge of bilking Indian tribes out of their pensions and running a massive underground money running scheme?
He was by his own admission, he was smoking crack every 15 minutes because it's
Every 15
only
minutes.
a very short high.
That seems difficult.
And
Is it a puff pass to yourself?
And that
every 15 minutes. That's worse than waking up in the middle of the night to feed a baby.
that was the time when he decided he was going to buy a gun. He bought it, I think, on October 12 of 2018. And on October 23 of 2018, his then partner, lover, Hallie, who was also his brother's widow, with whom he was living, took the gun and threw it in a trash can outside a market in Delaware. And she did so at the time, she said, because she was concerned about him and his volatility and his welfare, but also the welfare of her children, because they lived with their 2 children. Now, Hunter has changed that since to say, oh, she was worried about me committing suicide.
Yeah, I think it's kind of all of that. Yeah.
I think she was worried about a lot of things, and it wasn't just suicide.
Well, she didn't say it was just suicide. It's his. These are two people who were fucking. They were in a relationship together. But please tell me what you think they were thinking.
And so Hunter Biden somehow managed to skate free on that.
Oh my God. I would do this whole thing, but this is so goddamn tiresome. Again, it's not my fault if they anchor with some sort of big reveal or la at the end, because I have to sit through all the same shit that we've been talking about for the last year. Oh God, yeah, every 15 minutes means you'd be dead in a couple of hours. Oh God, this is so stupid. Okay, let's have a palate cleanser. Dinesh D'Souza is worried. By the way, you know all that stuff about Antifa attacking on the 6th? Apparently Dinesh D'Souza isn't buying it. Torturing Trump supporters. Biden is putting January 6th defendants in solitary confinement. Now he's just caging them with kids, I think, right? I mean, are any of them Mexican? It would, because you'd be for it if that was the case. Oi, let's just... Oh, Megan.
Talk about a system for torturing. Yes, torturing.
Yes, torturing.
Trumpsters.
Torturing? Trumpsters.
That has now been...
By the way, I thought we called you guys Trumpsters. Do you say maggots, too, amongst each other? Have you just tried to turn a negative into a positive?
in effect since January 6th.
Well, obviously, it was really hard to, put them in solitary confinement and torture them for shit they did on the 6th before the 6th. I mean, we've only got so much time.
Imposed by the Biden prosecutors. And this is a system of solitary confinement.
A lot of them are facing solitary confinement, apparently at home.
Solitary confinement for people charged very often with minor offenses.
Yeah. The ones who actually, were responsible for, gouging out the eyes of a cop or beating another one so that he had cracks in his spine, or tasing one in the neck until he had a heart attack, or murdering another one. Like those guys, I mean, they get extra privileges. That's just Biden's America.
At one point, according to the government itself, all the January 6 detainees, the people arrested.
They're detainees now. Oh, when are they going to Guantanamo? That's what I want to know. Is there a boat? Can we send it off? Can I hit it with a bottle of champagne? Answer the third question first.
Were in solitary confinement. And I'm going to get to what that means. And
let me guess. It means they're in solitary confinement.
Why it's particularly horrific. But
Well, it is particularly horrific, but I'm glad you're suddenly coming to on solitary confinement.
Let's start by talking about the fact that to justify this...
Yes, he said January 6th.
This extreme response, the left has been talking about insurrection, sedition, riots, terrorism. Now, all of...
Yes, all words that apply. And?
That could have occurred on January 6th. In fact, there's a very interesting article in American Greatness by Dan Galernter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't get my issue of American Greatness this week. I mean, maybe I have to check again. I do get it in a brown paper wrapper, so so I'm a little embarrassed. I only get it for the centerfolds.
It's called "What Would a Real Capitol Hill Riot Look Like?"
Oh, that's good. just some January 6th fanfic. This is what you guys did wrong.
And Galernter plays out a thought experiment. He says...
It's a thought experiment. Was he masturbating at the time?
One word from Trump. If
there is a coupon for Epic Times in there, except I've never used it or whatever. Not as a coupon anyways.
Trump had basically just said something like, listen, our election has been stolen from us. I want all of you to get all your weapons.
Yeah, that's what he would have said. To a functioning government. He would have just, if it was really a riot and an insurrection, he'd have gone, guys, all right, welcome to Insurrection Day. You'll find ammo boxes near you.
And come to Washington, D.C.
Don't mix calibers. I've told you guys, we don't need to lose any more thumbs.
And let's have a violent uprising.
Yeah, that's what he would have said. He would have said, let's have a Violent uprising, don't have a choice. Only.
Dan's point, the writer, Dan Galorto, is that would have occurred.
On the one, excuse me, calling it a point.
That would have been a real insurrection, and it would not have been pretty.
Not one of the, yeah, no, it would have been ugly, and they would have won. We totally would have kicked ass.
It would have actually been terrifying.
Yeah, like in a really cool way. Like I'm partially chubbing at the idea.
If Trump, he says, had 1 ounce of the authoritarian, dictatorial tendencies attributed to him, he could have done it.
Yeah, but that's exactly, this is 1 ounce of it. That's what you do. We're going to walk down there peacefully, but if we're not happy, we're going to let them know.
Trump is one of the few people who has the ability to, in a sense, you may almost say provoke, not just insurrection, but civil war. And this is not just
So consider yourself warned, liberals. Jesus Christ.
something that Trump could have done prior.
Totally could have done it. And obviously, you know, right after his supporters had a snack and bought another 30-round mag.
To January 6th, Trump could do it now.
Yeah, all he's one phone call. Why won't he? Damn it.
He's one of the few people who has the kind of support in the country where if he were to rally people to
Don't listen, Tom Cruise. I'm sure you could pull it off.
take to arms, they would.
What? Because only 10,000 of the whatever, like 500,000 that showed up actually attacked? That's like, you guys are lucky. It's totally a threat.
But the point is that Trump is not that kind of a guy.
Nah, he's a true Christian in the old form. You know, he's a turn the other cheek kind of a fella.
Is, I think, Galorto's point, that this is the left sort
Is that his point? I don't know. Read the article out loud.
of fiction about Trump. But Trump's actions, really from the outset, show that this is never what he was about. This is not what he
was always a man of peace.
was seeking on January 6th. And now there's a DC Medical Examiner report about the 6 people who died. 5 people who died.
Yeah, you don't want to add one.
On January 6th. 4 were Trump supporters. 2 died of a heart attack.
Because they couldn't get services to them because they died right there and there was a giant riot happening. It's a little hard to get an ambulance to someone who's surrounded by a bunch of people beating a cop with a Blue Lives flag.
1 of amphetamine poisoning. 1, a Trumpster, Ashley Babbitt, from homicide, but the homicide was perpetrated by a Capitol Hill police.
Whoa, not homicide. Not a homicide. And not a wrongful death either. Perpetrated by a Capitol police officer. Yeah, he spent all weekend wondering what woman he could shoot on the job that day.
Policeman. The manner of death of Officer Sicknick is still unknown. We know that he was not killed by being hit on the head with a fire extinguisher, as the New York Times, many other media outlets report. How he died remains unknown. The left
Yeah, but he probably had it coming, right, Dinesh? I mean, how dare he stand up to the peaceful march?
Frenzy about January 6th, most recently when there was the guy this is the Nation of Islam supporter who rammed his car into a barricade in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and killed two Capitol police officers. Well, injured one, killed another. Yeah, and?
Killing a Capitol policeman. And
that guy deserves solitary confinement, right? I mean, but he's dead. I mean, he is dead, though. He did get shot. It's weird. What was it about that guy where he jumps out of a car with a knife and after hitting somebody with a car and brandishing a weapon, he gets shot, but the other guys just get like pepper sprayed and a bus ticket home. Weird.
And by the way, it had nothing to do with January 6th. But right after it happens, the January 6th prosecutors go running into court and they say, we continue to have concerns about safety at the Capitol, as though this other incident is somehow further evidence of the need to maintain maximum militarization and maximum vigilance. Now,
well, there's obviously not maximum militarism and maximum vigilance. There's not fucking tanks parked on the road. There's not cannons on the Capitol steps. They don't have armed, like snipers on the goddamn roof. They just have a fence up.
Now, on top of this, we have an article in Politico
Jesus.
that points out, it's titled, Most Capitol Rioters Unlikely to Serve Jail Time. And what
Right.
they mean is that when you actually look at what many of these people did, it's essentially a big fat nothing.
No, it's not a big fat nothing. It's just that they're going to get a trespassing kind of level thing, because charging everybody with insurrection requires an investigation that's beyond the funds necessary that the DOJ has. You're not going to go after 10,000 people for insurrection when all they ended up doing was making it halfway up the steps.
Some of them walked into the Capitol unobstructed. They did no
Unobstructed? Why were they unobstructed, Dinesh? Why were they unobstructed? Because the cops had been overrun by the time they got there? Because the doors had been bashed in by the time they got there? Because the cops themselves knew they were outnumbered and had a choice, either let these people pass or use deadly force, and they chose not to? Why were they unobstructed, Dinesh?
did no physical damage to anything. They milled around, essentially, waving signs, maybe...
Right, those people aren't going to be the ones that are going to jail. The shit smears and the people who stole stuff, the ones who actually beat cops, they're going to go to jail and for insurrection.
Shouting. But here's Politico. Americans outraged by the storming of Capitol Hill are in for a jarring reality check. Many of those who invaded the halls of Congress on January 6th are likely to get little or no jail time. A Politico analysis, almost a quarter of the 230 defendants so far charged with only misdemeanors.
A quarter. Yes, we know. What is the surprise here? Because half of them who made it into the building are actually going to do some serious fucking jail time. And it's going to take a while. What is the argument here? Well, this started out as, oh my God, they're throwing Trump supporters in solitary confinement because literally, this is the name of the fucking thing. Biden is putting, not judge, not, for their own safety, none of that stuff. Biden is putting January 6th defendants, not people guilty, but defendants in solitary confinement, which is capitalized, and Trump supporters. These aren't just so much for the whole Antifa was really behind it.
Things like trespassing, being in the wrong place. This is on all.
You know what? You know who's in solitary confinement, Dinesh? Officer Sicknick. Yeah, there's this weird 1 to a coffin rule.
Authorized area of the Capitol. You can't be inside. That's it. They didn't do anything. They didn't harm anybody.
Yeah, they did. They harmed a bunch of people. First of all, they were part of the mass of people who trampled a woman to death. Secondly, they, by blockading and moving in and being part of the ultimate violence that happened there, are the reason why ambulance couldn't get to their own fellow Trump supporters who died of heart attacks.
Now, given all this, it is particularly, I think, horrifying.
Totally horrifying.
That the government has been using what it's somewhat euphemistic language is called, restrictive housing, these kinds of terms that are used to take people who have, by the way, they have not been tried, they have not been convicted of anything. They are presumed innocent.
Yeah, but they also have been released on bail. If you're talking about the people who have got, they have to stay in their houses.
So why is the government placing them in cells?
Wait a minute. Dinesh, hold on. Dinesh is all of a sudden for the elimination of cash bail, it would seem. Why do people ever have to sit in jail between the time they're arrested and the time they go to trial, Dinesh? Why? Because they're a danger to the community. That's why. What are you arguing for?
Which are essentially the size of a parking space at the grocery store. And
which grocery store? Because I know that some you might go to a nicer grocery store than I do, and so some of the spaces near you are much bigger.
They are in 23-hour lockdown. And what this means is that for 23 hours, they get no access to the outdoors. In some cases, no light. And no...
Who? Name one. What do you mean in some cases? You just went from most of these assholes aren't even going to get charged. Sorry, liberals. Liberal tears. To all of a sudden, they're all being treated like Hannibal Lecter
Meeting, no social interaction with anybody except a surly guard who shows
Well, obviously. How surly are we talking? Sweaty, bulging chest, beastly.
up to hand you your food and then leaves. So
Is that how it works? Well, you would know. You know what? Look at me. Look at me questioning what it's like to be in prison. And Dinesh can tell you.
this, I think, try to imagine yourself in this situation.
Doodle-a-doop, doodle-a-doop, doodle-a-doop. Imagining myself in this position.
It is a form of torture.
Okay, good. So, Republicans, especially Trumpsters and maggots and Dinesh D'Souza, are now against solitary confinement. It's weird that Democrats are pushing for the elimination of solitary confinement, for prolonged solitary confinement, and Republicans are against it. That's weird.
Yes, there's no really getting around it.
No, it's not. I mean, you can't. Let's not split hairs, Dinesh.
I'm trying to mentally envision myself sitting in a room, a tiny room with
I'm doing the same too. I'm picturing you sitting in a room, a tiny room.
nothing in it.
Nothing at all. Just an empty. Yeah, basically it's like padded walls,
And
no toilet, no cot, no desk.
and I'm sitting there for 23 hours. I wake up, it's the same. All day, it's the same.
It's almost like it's kind of the prison equivalent of listening to your podcast, Dinesh.
And all I get for 1 hour is to go outside, very often in shackles.
Well, of course. I mean, you're a dangerous criminal. I mean, this big surly guard, he may seem surly, but he's really a cream puff, and he fears for his life, Dinesh. I would keep you shackled, too. Because next thing you know, you've got this mask on, and you're spitting up part of a pen, and then, good. Ready when you are, Sergeant Pembry. You know what I mean?
With the guards. And there's also, so this is
Shackled with the guards? What kind of yard time are we talking about here, Dinesh?
going on. We see it's happened to the teenager, Bruno Kua. It's happened to to Lisa Eisenhart. It's happened to the guy who runs the group called Cowboys for Trump. It's happened to Christopher Kuhn. So all these
So there's a teenager in 23-hour-a-day solitary confinement. What do you mean we see it's happening to them? Where is there a? Please tell me there's a link. No, just a link to his own shows. Is there? I have to find. There's got to be an article, right? Let's see. Trump supporters solitary confinement. Maybe. Right? Is that what we think, guys? It's Caden. Oh my God, we found Caden. Oh my God, let's see. He's in solitary confinement, and you're never gonna guess why. After refusing a coronavirus test. So you can't be with everybody else, asshole, if you won't. Really? Really? Oh, wait, sorry. Trump wants to bring back torture. That's probably not... Yeah, that's the only one that came up. Is he the only one that hasn't done it? Let's see. Contempt report if he failed to appear by phone or video conference to detention hearing in the coming days. Know that Griffin's been yelling at officers and banging on the door of his jail cell. This matter will not move forward to a detention hearing until the defendant appears. So he's not showing up in court. He won't. He's just been fighting in it. Let's see. Reject initial offers to speak with an... Okay. So leader of the jailed leader of Cowboys for Trump has been held in solitary isolation for 2 weeks after he refused to take a coronavirus test and rejected initial offers to speak with an attorney or judge following his arrest in connection with January 6th siege of the Capitol, a federal judge said Friday in a court order. Coy Griffin, a county commissioner from the southern New Mexico and a founder of group Horseback Riding Supporters of Former Trump, has been charged by federal prosecutors with knowingly entering the Capitol grounds with the intent to disrupt government business. He was arrested January 17th. This matter will not move forward to a detention hearing until the defendant appears. So he's in solitary because he won't take a coronavirus test, and he's not getting moved out of detention and moving to the point where they can let him have they can stay at home with an ankle bracelet because he won't talk to an attorney or sit for a hearing. Jesus.
All these guys are treated essentially as if they are, I mean, they're like death row inmates. Now, death row inmates are sometimes given this treatment. The
Are they? Yeah, I'll give you, I mean,
23-hour lockdown. And it's widely understood to be much more restrictive than normal custody. In normal custody, you mill around, you're part of this
how's normal custody go, Dinesh?
larger group of people who are incarcerated. But it's very different. But death row inmates have been studied, and by and large, this does tremendous psychological harm. In fact, they even talk about something here in the literature. It's called death row syndrome. It's a psychological disorder. It not only produces suicidal tendencies among death row inmates, but psychotic delusions. Why? Because basically human beings are social animals. And
Yeah, and if people are on death row for, serial murders and vivisecting children and that kind of stuff, they need to be able to mill around in general pop.
keeping us isolated for long periods of time like this in a sort of dark cell, in a sense where all you have is yourself to deal with.
Well,
Hour after hour
don't threaten me with a good time.
after hour, it drives you nuts.
Oh, okay. Is that what happened to you, Dinesh? Tell us.
The United Nations has spoken out on this.
Wait, the UN dude's in for 2 weeks because of they're quarantining him. He's going to be in isolation for 2 weeks. And if he doesn't show symptoms, they'll move him to the general.
Talk about the fact that
Dinesh is of Indian descent. That is true.
that this kind of solitary confinement causes permanent changes to people's brains and to their
Well, then why not just get a COVID test and go to general pop?
personalities. It tends to diminish your capacity to remember things even later. There's a physical impact on your brain and on the cells that have to do with memory. And it causes something called social pain. And social pain is something that endures.
Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? These people are not in prolonged isolation. They are refusing COVID tests, so they're quarantining them while they're in jail for 2 weeks. If they don't get symptoms or they don't have it in that time, then they'll get moved to regular holding. All they have to do to get to move to regular holding is do a fucking COVID test. Man.
Even afterwards, it's essentially the memory of a kind of psychological pain.
And by the way, don't get me wrong, I adore the fact that suddenly Trump supporters and Dinesh D'Souza all of a sudden give a shit about the psychological impacts of solitary confinement on prisoners. What?
Now, what I'm getting at is that this is the way to treat maybe terrorists,
Maybe.
maybe death row inmates who have massacred a whole bunch of people. In those cases, you say, well, listen, these are people who have forfeited their rights. They don't have a right to decent treatment. They have taken away the rights of others. But in the case of the January 6 defendants, these are citizens who have not been found guilty of anything. Some of them are...
Yeah, but they could go home if, in the case of the Cowboys for Trump guy, they would actually sit for a fucking hearing, and then they can come back for a court date later. But if they're not going to have a COVID test, and they're not going to sit for the hearing, they're not going to turn you loose if you're a defendant in an attack on the Capitol that resulted in dead people.
charged with minor offenses.
No.
Where it's very unlikely that they will be locked up at all. So why are they being locked up now? Many of these D.C. judges are Obama judges. They're
Yeah, that's probably why. Are they black? They're black, aren't they?
Clinton judges, and
Jews. Probably Jews, too. Jewish, black. They're black Jews. They all look like Sammy Davis Jr. No, that's the guy who ran the insurrection.
there are some of them have raised questions about what the government is trying to do. The bottom line of it is the Biden administration, Merrick Garland, the Biden prosecutors, they're treating Trumpsters as
No. By the way, no, sir. No, sir. Trump had nothing to do with that attack. That was all Antifa. Those were all secret Antifa people posing as Trump supporters for like 5 years. It was part of a big underground movement. They all, I don't know why you're defending closeted Antifa people.
as foreign enemies. In some cases,
By the way, don't forget to like and subscribe and thumbs up and all that stuff. And I gotta remember to do these things. And don't forget, we On twitch.tv/HalSparks, you can subscribe using Amazon Prime.
Is treating them as bad.
I'm trying, can't stop lying. I really am. We watched Gates give his speech. Oh, did he give one? Did he finally do it? Yes. Hold on. Did that happen? Hold on. I love when stuff comes up. Hold on. Oh, boy. Let's see. Where did he give it? Did you guys see where? Speech. Today. It's January 6th. I'm looking for it. I'm hunting. Nope. Oh, wait.
What's going on, everybody?
Hey, what's up?
Welcome back.
Yeah, man. Did he actually... Where is it? Oh, my God. This is what comes up when I look up Matt Getz addresses the nation. Look at this dude. I'm just saying, this is really going to pique my... What the hell kind of production value is this? At least he steamed the sheet, I suppose. Breaking. Matt Getz addresses the nation. Truth exposed. Papow. Spoke at a women's conference? Oh, good Lord. I got my HalSparks mask. Oh, that's awesome. That's fantastic, Jacqueline. This guy, by the way, the Political Hub, 64,000 subscribers. See, this is what happens when you do, but 754 views, so not so much. This guy's always doing this. He does it in his garage in front of a sheet. It's always this setup. Look,
What's going on?
I'll give you a taste of it. I've seen a bunch of this shit.
On everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for watching and supporting.
Yeah, I have a question though. Can you get a hat and a T-shirt with the same American flag, America on it, or did you have to go to two different websites, or is that like an Etsy kit that you did?
Latest update for you guys on Matt Gaetz. Obviously,
yeah, can't wait.
he has been on a roller coaster of
yeah, totally, absolutely, an e-ticket ride
of a life the last few weeks. So just a really quick update for those of you that don't know. I don't know how,
people don't know.
But
tell them. Yeah,
he's potentially under investigation for
I don't know, some bullshit.
having sexual relationships with some female minor.
Yeah, whatever, run of the mill shit.
Now he's saying that it's actually like this crazy extortion attempt.
It's crazy. It's so crazy to even call it extortion.
And it's going to be an interesting thing, seeing how this plays out. So let's dive into this, get all the latest nitty-gritty details.
Get into the details.
Also, if you guys could, please subscribe to the...
Oh, fuck off. I'm not selling somebody else's shoe while I'm doing my own. Oh, God. I'll see if I can dig that up. Hold on. Because, okay. He spoke at a Matt Getz women's conference? Did they just... Who does his rehab speech? When is this? This week? Oh, let's look up this week. Yeah. Yikes. And that's the CBS one. Yeah.
And we began tonight with that breaking news out of Washington.
Oh, God. Yeah, I'm not finding it. If anybody has a link, I'm all ears. We'll just end up on... there's just so much... Ick. Dude. Thruple? Couple and three-person couple? Yeah. Ugh. So much garbage. Whiteout. This doesn't look good. I'm just saying. This is not the kind of week of news you want. Oops. Is Matt Gaetz really resigning? What's happening? This whole thing. Oh my god, it's the deep state conspiracy. I need to see a bunch of these people start to jump on each other. If you trust me, Gaetz has not spoken to a women's group. I don't think so. It might be an old one. I don't think he's been on TV since Tucker. No, he's released written statements, but he's not. I don't see him coming out. He just hired a PR team to push back against some of this stuff. All right, I'm skipping it. Oh, okay. So we'll end the show this way, because I have to sleep at some point. Oh, by the way, tomorrow night. So tomorrow, regular radio show. Tomorrow, Sexy Liberal 10th anniversary special with some new bits and some memories and people and Rosie O'Donnell and guests, and it's gonna be great. And after that, I am going to be appearing at the Film Threat Awards, and it's gonna be a good time. I'm excited. So at a drive-in, it's gonna be one of those drive-in shows in LA tomorrow. So after the show, after the radio show, I get to hop in my car, drive to LA, do the Sexy Liberal meet and greet and stuff using my iPad wherever I am, probably at the house there, and then go straight down and do this thing. I may end up even having to go to the drive-in and just kind of do it in the green room, depending on the thing. So it'll be good. It'll be a kind of behind the scenes thing. And then I've got a Flapper show on Sunday, and at this point, because of their setup, I don't know if I'm going to just drive back Sunday morning or late Saturday night like a crazy person, and then do the Flapper show from here, or if I'm doing it from there. I don't know. Oh my god. Axios? Matt gets sex trafficking women's conference. Oh god. Hold on. This is gross. Axios. Sex trafficking women's conference. Ference. Let's see. Back up, see if I can find videos. Nope. I think he's going to, but I don't know that he has. Yeah, it says he's going to speak at this thing. Okay, so we'll do it when it happens. I see. Somebody's probably mentioning that it's going to actually happen. Okay, we'll find it. But sorry. The whole point though is let's talk about guns for a second, shall we? Come on, let's just talk about guns. Many of you may not know, but my family has guns. We've had guns our whole lives. I don't have one currently because it doesn't interest me, and I have a 9-year-old in the house. It seems like a mistake. And you guys know I have a walrus stick for home defense. It's an awkward conversation, but it's true. And I'm a lifelong member of the NMLRA, the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association. That's true. Have been since I was 8, 10, something like that. My first gun was a Herschel House flintlock. Still have it, scaled down for my 10-year-old self. And my family grew up with, my dad is a gold medal winning skeet shooter using flintlocks and percussion guns, traditional guns. So, I mean, literally like powder horns and the whole deal, and, skeet shooting and that kind of stuff. He and a guy from Australia, like jockey for, the first place in a bunch of these meets every year, like trading off. So I'm not, let's be abundantly clear, I'm not gun averse. I'm not gun averse for concealed carry when people go through the process. I'm not against even having things like AR-15s for your own private use. I do have a problem with 30 and 60 round magazines, and especially not having to register that you have them or say that you have them, because it ends up getting into the zone where like psychopaths and serial killers and terrorists can just stockpile stuff And then they're like, yeah, I got an AR-15. He's got an AR-15. It doesn't fucking matter. But the guy next door doesn't have the 10-round magazine that came with it that you guys use when you're out shooting at the range. He has a small army like stash. He's got an arsenal effectively in his basement, and that's what matters. So the regulations that Biden was talking about like ghost guns being registered like regular guns, so kit guns have to have serial numbers on them and that kind of shit. Like, these aren't really weird, overreaching things. And Boebert's tweet where she put up that the Second Amendment is absolute, and anybody who tells you different is an authoritarian. Well, then that just means that she believes she should be able to have child porn and snuff films, because if the Second Amendment is absolute, it's the Second Amendment. The first one would be absolute as well, because it came first and it covers more ground. So isn't it against your violation of free speech if you can't have child porn, then, Lauren Boebert? Is that what you're arguing? Because it sounds like that's what you are. I'm sure that that Greg Salcido considers himself a Second Amendment absolutist, which means he would if there's any logical continuity in his brain, he's a First Amendment absolutist as well. Totally for free speech, right? In all its forms. Sorry. Free speech is what it is. Well, then child porn counts, right? Right, Greg? You own it. It's yours. You didn't participate in it. You just, it's old. You've had it for a long time. Right, Greg? What's his name? Chris Salcido? What's Salcido's name? Jesus, like I care. Chris, yeah. So, these guys who argue that the Second Amendment is an absolute right are basically doing that so that they can, because they think pedophilia should be legal. I mean, right? Freedom of expression, freedom of speech. If your religion, I'm a baby-eating Satanist. I should be able to eat babies. It's freedom of religion is absolute, isn't it, Chris? You get my point. So let's see what he's whinging about. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of tough guying, and he's going to lean his forehead forward a bunch when he talks.
Demanding our guns,
demanding our guns. Demanding your guns have serial numbers on them, so if they're used to murder a couple and their 4-year-old child in the commission of a robbery, we can know where the gun was bought and whether the person that sold them to him knew they were selling it to a felon, which is a crime, and then that person can go to jail, so that law-abiding gun owners don't have to deal with this kind of shit.
We just outlined, Joe Biden announced a series of executive actions today on gun control that will tighten restrictions on so-called ghost guns and pistol stabilizing braces. And officials say this is just the beginning.
Well, yeah. But what do you have? Don't jump straight to it. You can't go, well, it's just the beginning. Next thing you know, they'll be stealing our guns and shooting us with microwaves from space. That's what he wants you to think. Just the beginning of other sensible gun regulations. But please, I mean, how are you going to defend your child porn staff, Chris Salcido, if you don't have a shoulder stock for your handgun?
Joining me now to weigh in, Texas Senator Ted Cruz.
Oh, good. Somebody who really cares about his constituent. Is there going to be any... does the president have any new regulations on people freezing to death?
Senator, I know we don't know much information about what's going on in Bryan, Texas right now. It's breaking news.
Yeah, but let's not let that spoil our fun.
But I just wanted to get your take. From what we can understand, 6 people are injured and they're after the suspect.
Yeah, but he's look, guys, why are they bothering this man? He was a law-abiding gun owner up until an hour ago, and now the government just wants to regulate his ass out of existence?
Yeah, at this point, we don't have significantly more information than that.
What you do have information of is that all those people weren't stabbed. They weren't beat with a stick. They weren't maced and tickled, were they? No, they were shot.
But certainly we're monitoring it closely.
Yeah, I could tell. You're monitoring so closely, you broke off from monitoring it closely to talk to Chris Salcido about how the dude who did this should have had easier access to guns.
Okay. You've got far more experience than Biden does on the issues of guns. If Grassley Cruz had been debated and passed, we could actually be targeting criminals rather than law-abiding citizens. Democrats seem to be targeting us, the law-abiding citizens. Don't their target...
Why? What? How does that target you? If you're a law-abiding citizen, what do you give a shit if your ghost gun kit, so you can build a gun in your garage, has a serial number that shows where it was purchased, like every other fucking gun?
Targets reveal what their real proposals are meant to do?
Yeah, what are they really after? All they want are, that they want Mexicans, especially Mexican 8-year-olds with COVID, to come over here, hand them a gun, a welfare check, and tell them who to shoot. White people.
Chris, you're exactly right.
Exactly right. And that's why I'm on your show.
And you put your finger on the distinction between the left and right.
Yeah, your trigger finger.
If the objective is to stop violent crime and stop gun crime in particular.
Uh-oh, did somebody just get fucking shot in his garage? What the hell was that?
Right. If the objective is to stop violent crime and stop gun crime in particular.
Just literally someone's getting shot while he's doing this segment.
There is an approach that works, and the approach that works
is you sneak up behind them, and is that what you're talking, Ted?
Is targeting the bad guys.
Yeah, you mean by making sure that kit guns, which are not, which are used a lot in crimes and aren't traceable, have serial numbers so you can trace them.
Going after criminals, going after felons and fugitives and those with serious mental illnesses that try to illegally buy guns.
And domestic abusers and people who have threatened people's lives, and so they can take away their guns, or people who get a restraining order for violent behavior, who might go get a gun, lie on the farm, and because the thing's just been filed in a state where they, if they don't have it, if they can't complete the background check in 3 days, they just get the gun.
And for 9 years in the Senate, I have been leading the fight to go after the bad guys, to take the violent criminals and come down on them like a ton of bricks.
Since when? Where's the come down on violent criminals like a ton of bricks bill from Ted Cruz?
To stop these mass murders that we've seen across the country. Unfortunately,
how? None of those fuckers are violent criminals that you could come down on with a ton of bricks until after they've already shot 8 people. That's the problem with this shit. They're all law-abiding gun owners until that first moment, till the first bullet tears through a child or a person walking their dog or somebody in a church. These are all that. The problem is who can qualify as a law-abiding gun owner before they do this shit.
Fortunately,
you don't get extra fucking points for putting Dylan Roof in jail. Right? What are you talking about?
Every time we have a shooting, every time we have a mass murder, the Democrats don't want to focus on the bad guys. They don't want to focus on the criminals. They don't want to actually...
Yeah, they do. They go, we all do. Like, why the fuck was that guy able to get a gun? Why did he have so many rounds? Why did he have 2 30-round clips duct taped together? Why do you have a 60-round magazine? Why was he stockpiling ammo for a year and nobody could notice? Because if you stockpile ammo because you're a fucking shooter and you just love to go to the range and that's your idea of a good time and you're there every weekend, so you're spending these rounds every goddamn weekend. If the FBI or the like alcohol, tobacco, and firearms calls you up and goes, "Hey, bruh, we're just checking a little wellness check on here. We've noticed a shit ton of ammo you're buying. Do you own a range, or are you just preparing for the great day of the rope? Or are you just scared of something? Can we help you out?" No, I go to the range every weekend, and this is I belong to this range, so we shoot all the time. I've been working on, this kind of thing. We've been doing training. I go to this Michigan militia camp and stuff. It's just a good time or whatever. Cool. Okay, thanks, bye.
Stop the violence with the policies that work. Instead, their approach is always go after the constitutional rights of law-abiding citizens.
How? How the fuck does having a serial number on the barrel of a kit gun and on the sear pin and on the stock, how does that go after the rights of law-abiding gun owners? If they're abiding by the law, it's just another law they can abide by. It makes them an even more law-abiding gun owner.
Their solution is to disarm you and to disarm me.
How does it disarm you? How does a bump stock disarm you? How does removing bump stocks or shoulder braces, turning your handgun into a rifle, how does that disarm you? Nobody's getting disarmed. In theory, you probably own a shit ton of store-bought guns before you ever decide you're going to fucking build one from a kit.
And it's
And if you don't, it's because you shouldn't have one, because you can't buy one.
Unconstitutional, and it's also incredibly ineffective. Every time we have a shooting, we see Democrats demagogue.
And every time we have a shooting, we see you guys run interference for them, and nothing gets done. And the same nutcases can buy the same shit and stock up ammo for a long period of time, and nobody ever even knocks on the door to ask what the shit is up. And all these junk guns, these handmade like kit guns, all end up in Chicago. You're always bitching about the violence in Chicago and Baltimore and all this stuff because felons shouldn't be able to have guns anyways. Well, they don't buy them in a store. They don't. Very few of them are at this point are straw man purchases in places like Indiana and Louisiana, and they get driven up in the trunk of a car. It's kit guns with no serial number, fucking duct taped together.
Saw this most recently with the horrific shooting that played out in Colorado just a few weeks ago, where Democrats and the news media, for a day, it dominated the news that we must disarm America because of this mass murder.
Really? Is that was that what you heard? Shit for brains? We must listen to this shit. We must disarm America because of this shooting. Really? Is that what you hear when someone says comprehensive background checks?
Then suddenly the facts didn't hit their narrative because the gunman was not an individual they wanted. He appeared to be a Syrian who was a Muslim who was angry at Donald Trump. That was not the narrative they wanted to tell. And
he shouldn't have had access to it either. He was mentally ill. His family said he's nuts. They should have been able to make a phone call and with a red flag law, make sure he couldn't purchase a gun or remove the guns he had in his house temporarily. That's not disarming America. That's disarming Syrian mental patients.
And so magically, that murder disappeared from the news. We saw likewise.
Well, it got pushed off by another mass shooting, you dick, and then another one.
In the Capitol, a lunatic who attacked Capitol Police.
With a knife.
And
a car.
Murdered a Capitol Police officer. That dominated the news. Proof these crazy Trumpsters are insane, and we've got to disarm them. And
what are you talking about? The guy was shot. He ran over somebody with a car. Nobody's saying, where's the anti-knife legislation?
Then, the guy was a Nation of Islam member and a radical Islamic terrorist, and suddenly, poof, disappears, does not exist, nothing to see here, move on. And the cynicism with which they approach these issues of crime.
He had a knife. We're talking about gun control. What the fuck are you talking about? The dude slammed his car into two people and then got out and got blown away, committed suicide by cop.
I mean, it's frankly disgusting.
It is. And again, their compatriots in the press are carrying the Democrat socialist water every step of the way.
Yeah, that's it. The socialist anti-gun.
Today, Jen Psaki was asked about Biden's stance on gun background checks. Here's what she said.
Is it the president's belief that you do not have to undergo a background check when you are at a gun show?
No, it's not his belief. He believes that background check should be universal.
Yeah, and here's a good idea. Go through a background check, and then you get a card that you can go into the gun show. You can buy fucking whatever you want if you pass the background check. Make it real fucking easy. How about literally a background check card that links to your driver's license? Make it even more comprehensive. What's the hard part? Then you don't have to wait on each one of them.
Okay.
What is the complaint?
But later in the day, this is what Biden had to say about background checks at gun shows. Watch.
The president said a moment ago, quote, "You go to a gun show, you can buy whatever you want. No background check."
Yeah, that was.
Yeah, that was his complaint, fuckhead. What's wrong with you? He didn't say you could. Yeah, shit. I'm just kidding. I'm not. what I signed, you can go to a gun show, buy whatever you want. He's like, that's the problem. Are you that dumb? Am I losing my mind here? Are you fucking kidding me? Chris, you both know that was the complaint. He was saying, he's like, I don't even understand. That is amazingly dumb. How'd you not edit this segment out, Chris? Honestly, are you smelling almonds? Can we get you some help?
That was the quote from the president. He falsely claimed at a gun show you can buy whatever you want with no background check. This is how they operate. That's a complete and utter lie, Senator. But this is how they get their agenda passed.
Yeah, you can't buy a handgun, but you can buy anything else.
No, that's exactly right. And
yeah, tell him, Ted.
And Democrats, when they address issues of guns, they operate in a fact-free environment where they don't know what they're talking about. I remember, I think it was USA.
Yeah, if anybody knows guns and gun rights, it's Ted Cruz.
Today, a couple of years ago, was talking about attachments for scary assault rifles they were talking about. And they described how there was an attachment to put a chainsaw on the front of a so-called assault rifle. Apparently,
you mean from Gears 5? From Gears of War? Who said this?
Like a bayonet. Look, I've fired a lot of rifles in my day. I've never seen one you could strap a chainsaw to.
They were talking about a fucking video game.
The front of. I'm pretty sure that would be top heavy and wouldn't work. But they have no idea. I mean, I did see some editorial cartoonists who came up with missile launchers for the front of your rifle. I mean, let's get creative. Let's strap a tank to the front of the rifle. They don't know what they're talking about. And by the way, as you know, the rules at a gun show or anywhere else is if you purchase a firearm from a federally licensed dealer, you have to go through a background check. That's true at a gun show. That's true at a gun store. That's true at Academy. That's true wherever you buy it if you buy it from a federally licensed dealer.
A federally licensed dealer. What? Yeah, but that I'm sure at gun shows there are only federally licensed dealers, right?
If you buy it from an individual who's not in the business of being a dealer, then you're not required to undergo a background check in those limits.
Okay, so basically, some dude who gets, the straw man dude goes over and buys whatever the fuck you want, and then you guys meet in the bathroom and talk about what, like show your dicks to each other, gun-wise, euphemistically speaking, and then you can just trade cash for a gun in the parking lot or near the snack bar over nachos.
Limited circumstances.
Yeah, as much as the dude can carry.
But you started this segment by talking about the grass.
But what? But what? So the federally licensed gun dealers have to go through the hoops, but all these individual assholes can trade all they want, and they can sell you kit guns they build themselves without ever having to do that.
Grassley-Cruz legislation. That was legislation I introduced in 2013 following the horrific shooting in Newtown, Connecticut of those young kids who were targeted and murdered.
Yes, don't say little. It makes people sympathetic. Say young, because it's more apt that they had it coming, like gang members.
What Grassley-Cruz did is it focused on the felons and fugitives and those with serious mental illness. And number one,
It was unconstitutional because of all the people in the Republican caucus that were against it. I'll never be able to own a gun again.
Databases, they have a terrible record of actually recording felony convictions. So the database is lacking a lot of convictions, both federal convictions and state convictions. Grassley-Cruz says, let's improve the database. If you're convicted of a felony, we want that information in the database. But
Hi. Huh? Okay, love you.
Number two, bizarrely, the Department of Justice has a long practice of not prosecuting felons and fugitives who try to illegally buy a firearm. And Chris, let me give a specific.
That's weird. It's almost as if the local and state forces, in certain red states, aren't cooperating with the feds.
Big example. Sutherland Springs, a small town in Texas, tragically the site of the worst church shooting in the history of our country.
So tragic. And yet, what'd you do about it?
I was in Sutherland Springs the day after that shooting.
To what? Sell somebody a gun?
I stood in that sanctuary, that beautiful little sanctuary.
And did nothing.
When there was glass shattered everywhere, blood, shattered iPhones,
Shattered iPhones. It truly was a tragedy.
Deranged lunatic murdered innocent women, children, murdered an 18-month-old infant.
Uh-huh. You're not doing a lot for Chris's case that, by the way, was this guy allowed to buy a gun?
Had Grassley Cruz passed, there's a very good possibility that mass murder wouldn't have happened. Why?
Why?
Because the shooter had a felony conviction that should.
So he would have had to buy a kit gun from somebody that wasn't a licensed federal dealer at a gun show, which you would still allow.
Have been in the database, but the Obama Air Force never reported it to the database. So the
Obama Air Force. I didn't realize Obama had his own Air Force. All right. The Obama Air Force. Because the military really has just, I mean, as soon as Obama was on the scene, they were like, how do we line up behind this guy?
The federal government screwed up, didn't put his conviction in the database. He then went to a federally licensed dealer to purchase his firearms, and he filled out the form. You and I have both filled out that form before. It asks, do you have a felony conviction? He checked the box that said no. It also asked, do you have a domestic violence conviction? He checked the box that said no.
Yeah, the problem is conviction. If you have a current, domestic violence related court order of, keeping your distance from somebody, or that you can't come in contact with somebody, there's an argument that would have done it, but they're not for that.
Both of those were lies, and it is a felony to lie on that form.
So, God, this guy was a criminal even before he shot up a bunch of people. Of course, it's not the gun that gun was innocent. That poor innocent gun.
They ran.
I mean, it probably on a regular day, it would have been friends with one of those iPhones. For all we know, they could have shared metal parts by some trick of fate.
And the background check, but because the Obama Air Force had never reported his conviction.
The Obama Air Force. God damn.
He came up clean. He purchased his firearm, and he went and carried out that horrific murder. If Grassley Cruz had passed, the Department of Justice was required to conduct an audit, to find every federal felony, make sure it's in the database. So if it had passed, presumably his conviction would have been in the database.
So I'm guessing that change, the expansion of the database is in every gun bill that the Democrats have tried to pass, but you voted against all of them. Honestly, the expansion of that database and the modernizing of that database is in every Democratic bill. If you had voted for any of those, then that guy would have been caught. Any Democratic bill would have solved that problem. So basically what we've learned is that Ted Cruz is responsible for that church shooting and that Chris Salcido appreciates it.
But secondly, it mandated the Department of Justice to go and prosecute felons who lie on their forms and try to illegally buy guns. If Grassley Cruz had passed, the Department of Justice would have prosecuted him, they would have thrown him in jail, and he would have been in a jail cell instead of that beautiful sanctuary. Do you know why Grassley Cruz passed?
Why didn't it pass?
Because Chuck Schumer and the Democrats filibustered it. It got a majority of votes on the Senate floor, but the Democrats are so bound and determined to take away your Second Amendment rights that when it came to common sense steps to go after bad guys and stop gun violence, they filibustered it because they don't actually have an interest in solving the problem. They're interested in politics.
Yeah, is that all there was in that bill? Ted, do we have to go read the whole thing? What was the poison pill, Ted? What did it expand? How did it allow more people, more lunatics to buy shit? Or it was just a loophole bill?
Politics.
100% correct. And don't forget.
Totally 100% correct. Absolutely. Let's see. I know I'm getting long, and this is one that always comes up this way. Cruz, Grassley, gun bill fails. Okay, let's see at that. Ted Cruz's misleading memories of his 2013 gun proposal. Sutherland Springs, he's been telling the same story. This is March 23rd. In the wake of the mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado, Cruz says legislation he offered in 2013 could have prevented one of them. The facts. In response to the 2012 school shooting in Newtown, Democrats and some Republicans proposed expanding background checks to cover more types of gun sales and banning the sale of some semi-automatic weapons. The Safe Communities, Safe Schools Act of 2013 was the most significant gun control bill to move through Congress in decades, but it drew fierce opposition from the National Rifle Association, failed to muster the 60 votes needed to overcome a Senate filibuster, and eventually died. Amendments aplenty were proposed and defeated. The one from Cruz and Senator Charles Grassley would have removed the core of the gun bill. The expanded background checks, would have removed it. The Grassley plan instead of proposed more prosecutions of gun buyers who falsely stated their criminal histories. Among other changes, the Cruz amendment would have reduced penalties for states that neglect to submit records. What was that? Would have reduced the penalties for states that neglected to submit records to the FBI's centralized database of background checks of gun buyers, the National Instant Crime Background Check System, NICS. The Cruz proposal also would have capped federal grants to improve states' reporting procedures for the FBI database at $20 million, down from $100 million, and allowed for the interstate sale and transport of firearms. The Sutherland Spring shooter Kevin Patrick Kelly had pleaded guilty to domestic violence assault in 2012 court-martial. Prosecutors alleged that in 2011 and April 2012, he unlawfully struck, choked, kicked, and pulled the hair of his wife and struck her young son with a force likely to produce death or grievous bodily harm. Kelly was reduced in rank. Oh, that'll show him. And released from the Air Force with a bad conduct discharge in 2014. Air Force prosecutors had argued for a sentence of 4 years so Kelly might get his anger issues under control. Yeah, because everybody gets their anger issues under control in jail. Rather than the 12 months of confinement and bad conduct discharge you got. Federal law prohibits people convicted of any domestic violence offense from possessing or buying firearms. State of Texas had denied Kelly's application for a license to carry a handgun, so his carry was denied. But one is not needed to buy firearms under state law. The Air Force was required to report Kelly's conviction to the FBI. That would have added to the NICS database and blocked his gun purchases. They missed 6 opportunities to report Kelly and have added him to the NICS. Because, remember that Let Domestic Abusers Buy Guns Act that Obama put forward when he was a senator? First, Kelly was investigated in 2011 when his 11-month-old stepson wound up in the hospital twice in 1 week. He was fingerprinted, found probable cause. He assaulted the child, did not submit the fingerprints to the FBI as required. Because Obama probably called the Air Force personally. Ugh, what a bunch of douchebags.
Don't forget, Dylan Roof was also a failure of government. This is why the founders didn't want the American people to be disarmed. Because when the government fails you, because it always will fail.
Yeah. The founding fathers wanted all those toddlers to have flintlocks.
You'd better be able to protect yourself from the criminal element or other dangers to you and your family. That's why what Biden is proposing today is so dangerous. Last thing.
Why is it dangerous? Seriously, how does that stop you from open carry or concealed carry? How does that stop you from getting a permit? None of these changes do that. Arguably, every teacher in that school could have gotten a concealed carry permit or an open carry permit. That wouldn't change that law.
Senator, I got to ask you. I want to turn to the crises, the multiple crises of the border that Biden has created. The national security.
Yeah, why can't we just shoot these people?
Crisis, the humanitarian crisis, and the public health crisis. He contends these surges happen every year. That's another lie. Because we're not setting records the way he is with all of this happening down the border.
Well, that's because it's the surge that happens every year, plus the people that Trump parked on the other side of the border.
Every single year. The Attorney General...
By not processing claims. They all just stayed there.
Ken Paxton of Texas told us that border states, including...
That's by the way, they love to show this Guatemalan border footage.
Our beloved Texas are powerless to legally stop all the harm the federal government is doing to us in Texas. What do you tell your constituents?
Well, Texans are mad and they're frustrated, and they should be.
Yeah, they've got you representing them. You went to Cancun while they were freezing to death.
A couple of
their grid sucks.
Weeks ago, I led a delegation of 19 senators to go down to the border, down to the Rio Grande Valley. Over the last decade, I've been down to the border many, many times representing the great state of Texas. I've seen it bad before. I've never seen it remotely as bad as it is now. I went out on midnight
I thought the wall was supposed to fix
patrol
it.
with the Border Patrol agents. We saw just caravans of people hiking north from the Rio Grande River. Kids walking alone, moms with
kids walking alone. I mean, honestly, that's the next 9/11 waiting to happen.
Infants nursing, just walking alone.
Infants nursing, walking alone? Were they just carrying a tit? I saw a child carrying his mother had sent him ahead with one breast. That's all he had. What?
And coming up here, we went and visited.
Honest to God, what was that?
Hiking north from the Rio Grande River. Kids walking alone, moms with infants nursing, just walking alone. And coming up here, we went and visited the Donna tent facility, which is this giant tent city that has been built to accommodate this mass.
By Sheriff Arpaio to hold, guys with unpaid parking tickets in the Texas heat.
Surge. The capacity of the Donna facility is 1,000 people. With COVID restrictions, its capacity is 250. When we were there, they had 4,200 people packed into those Biden cells.
What's the alternative? Leave the children in the desert? Build more? Are you going to build more facilities? Is that what your answer is? Leave them outside? What do you want to do? Where are you going to put them? They came across, you caught them. What do you do with them? Process them and send them back.
That is 1,500% capacity. And in those Biden cells, there were kids. They weren't 6 feet apart. They weren't 3 feet apart. They weren't even 6 inches apart. They were lying side by side, touching on the floor, no beds, no mats, no cots, no nothing, wrapped up in reflective emergency blankets.
As opposed to being in the desert alone?
Rate of COVID positivity at the Donna facility is 10%. It is
So it's basically the same as Texas.
Grotesque. It is inhumane.
They didn't give them fucking COVID, and they're separating people that they can test. Abbott turned down funds to test these people.
It is wrong, as you know. I took out my
Benny Loco, thank you. Smash the likes.
My camera. I took pictures and video because Biden wouldn't let the press in there. Biden sent a political minder from D.C. to try to stop the senators from recording what happened. She jumped in front of my phone. She tried to block it. We put it out. And ultimately, the Biden administration got so shamed that a few days later, they finally let the press in. But what they are...
Yeah, they're shaming... Yeah, that's what did it. Thanks, Ted, for shaming the Biden administration.
What they're doing is wrong. And the important point to understand, this was preventable.
Yeah, we could have just set fire to these people. One napalm strike on that tent city in Juarez would have...
It is the direct result of 3 political decisions made by Joe Biden.
Not to set children on fire.
In his first week, number 1, he announced he was immediately halting construction of the wall. Number 2...
And so people were like, let's go. And they're like, through the gaps in the wall? No, the regular ways we go.
He reinstated the failed policy of catch and release.
So they just figured they're going to be turned loose. And I mean, they obviously said the border isn't open in English and Spanish. But
number 3,
but those are for people who are already...
Somebody has done their research because the Chiron's got number 3. He ended the Remain in Mexico policy. And the Remain in Mexico policy...
I like the picture of him smiling in front of the wall, though.
See, that's actually the most significant of the 3. Remain in Mexico.
And Senator, I am up.
Okay. First of all, somebody was shooting in Ted's house, and now there's someone beating a child.
Against the clock right now, and you know what? I could talk to you the entire hour. We've got so much to dissect, but
yeah, you're so interesting.
The time you always make for the Chris Salcedo Show is much appreciated, and we'll talk again soon.
Oh, he's got time, Chris. He's got plenty of time. Don't worry. Oh, did I freeze? What the hell? No, it froze up for a second. My computer's cooking again. Rats.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Totally. Thanks, bro. Oh my God, the same liberal Trojan horse. Like, Biden doesn't understand guns. That's the next one. And we had some diamond and silk. We ran out of time today. I'm sorry. It's already 20 after. Thank you guys so much. Regular radio show tomorrow. Johnny will be back with us. I'm gonna go cool off my computer. And my girlfriend's mom is coming to visit. So she's arriving from the airport in like 10 minutes. So I'm going to go clean up myself and put some shoes on, and then at some point try to get myself in order so that I can do the big drive tomorrow for the show. And hopefully you guys will enjoy the Sexy Liberal show. Patrons, I will be posting the sketches on Sunday, but hopefully that doesn't stop you from buying tickets and watching the rest of them. I always want to post those things kind of like right away, but I don't want anybody who wouldn't get a ticket who's a patron because they, I don't know. Nobody else in the show really seems to care, but I do. So that's my ethic. Yeah. So, yay! So those of you that want to join, sexyliberal.com/tour, that's where the tickets are. VIP is sold out, but we do indeed have, it's virtual, so it's endless tickets, and it's, I'm happy with some of the stuff. I wish I had time to finish some of the other stuff, but I'm just going to finish it over the next week and post it for you guys as a thank you to the patrons. So thank a patron today for making the show happen. Patreon.com/HalSparks. Thank you guys so much. And I will see you guys tomorrow. We will at the regular time, and then of course those of you that are doing Sexy Liberal, and then after that for the live show. Now I don't know if they're streaming it. I have to find out from Chris if they're streaming it. So as far as the Film Threat Awards, so that should be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. It's gonna be a good time. Apparently they did a whole video package about me. I'm very excited. I don't know. I feel like I'm winning something, even though I'm just there to help semi-host or something like I do every year. Sorry I'm freezing up. The computer's getting hot. We'll get a new computer, I promise. Working on that. We really are. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye. Take care. See you later. Yay.